Hello. I don't know what else to start with this, but, oh god. Hello. I'm here today to talk about, whatever happened. um, so, you remember the PAC-12? Well, it became the PAC-10, then the PAC-7, and now the PAC-4. So what? So what happened here? Okay, so to my best knowledge, it all started when Apple was the only thing that was giving them any sort of attention for that, which it's interesting. So, how did this start? Well, basically started a year ago when shockingly, UCLA and USC decided to join the Big Ten Conference. I thought it was dumb, but hey, at least it was far enough out so that they could get those schedules in. Just good. I like that. That'll be important for later. So then something else happened. So you remember those media deals that the Big Ten got that actually were worth something? Well, the Pac-12 wasn't getting it. The ACC almost died. I repeat, almost. But then they got that CW deal, which everyone laughed at, but in hindsight, that was the best move. uh, that almost fell apart. But then the Pac-12 got into the spotlight. All the presidents were not having fun, especially the teams that were not, how do I put this, desirable or willing to move on from the Pac-12. Yeah, that's why I'm gonna put it. So it's gotten real bad. It's gotten really bad, and at this point, it could become the Pac-3 if this Oregon State and San Diego State to the Big 12 thing does commence. So this has gone downhill fast. So downhill that somebody already made a meme of it. It is the PAC-4 website. the premier tri-state West Coast college football conference. Fierce rivalries, pride tradition, easy travel schedule. The four that are remaining. It basically just memes it. Also, taken with our new camera. This is Andrew Luck. This is the brawl. Just kidding. And this is a question mark. The 2024 football schedule includes many repeats, playing teams at least 3 times. And then the Pac-4 playoffs. North Division, Oregon and Washington State, or Oregon State, Washington State, and then California and Stanford. This won't happen. The Pac-4 would die. Drop me a DM on X. It literally is just the Twitter page for George. It just makes funny. There's this as well. Support us on Patreon, and that's it. It just links to the patreon.com website. So, it's gotten so bad that someone's already made a meme about it, and it's not even finished. Now, how can this not be finished? Well, as I've already said, the Oregon State and the San Diego State thing, that's still going on. It was about a day ago when it started. And there's this whole thing. So, what happened? What happened here? So, Honestly, it's really hard to start with, except for the fact that the Pac-12, it wasn't going to survive if it didn't accept the terrible media deal it was going to give. Apple probably could have offered more, but in reality, it probably falls on who is it? Yeah, Disney. Essentially, Disney had to cut a bunch of costs because, sure, I mean, I'm pretty sure they recorded some sort of loss, but that's the reason why ESPN is not going all in. And now the Big Ten has gone from 16 teams to 18 teams with zero possibility of 20. I will just flat out say it. We will not be picking up Cal or Stanford. That, I don't understand why people think that would be a idea. I think that would be dumb. I could understand 19 if it's like Notre Dame, but Notre Dame's not coming unless we do something. For that. There's because Notre Dame is still very much uninterested. Oregon State and Washington State are like the biggest losers in this because their rivalries are gone with the higher power leaving for the Big Ten. Me personally, as a Nebraska fan, it doesn't necessarily. It does matter because it really makes it so that we're gonna have to be stuck in a pod. If I know my Big Ten, they're gonna stick us in a pod where we're gonna play all four of our opponents twice per basketball season, and then at least once during football. They were giving us a generous thing for the 2024 and 2025 football schedules by only giving us USC and UCLA once we were in 2025. 2024, we only faced USC. Yeah, you remember those schedules? Throw them out the window, literally, because they don't matter. Because they're joining Washington. So, Washington and Oregon. There's no green here. Washington, Oregon are joining in 2024. So this is the last year of the Pac-12. Or the Pac-10. Or the Pac-7. Or the Pac-4. Whatever the name shall be. I am not old enough to have understood what exactly the Conference of Champions was. How do I put it? But they're not merging with the what is it, Mountain West Conference? Yeah, they're not gonna merge. If anything, they're just gonna steal some teams and call it there. Rick Pitino throwing some shade, but Washington State's head coach roasting everyone, which makes total sense. He's right. You got to think of the players, and they're not. I feel there was some softball players that came out and were adamant that their mental health would be more worthy of their time to fix than to be playing softball, which I 100% understand. Because they are going to have to be traveling thousands of miles to play most of their Big Ten opponents. Even Nebraska is still like 1,300 miles away. 1,300 miles! That is damn far. Even if it's like on a plane, that's still far away. Your family's not, like in the case of some of the softball players, your family's not going to be able to watch that. The only way that they're going to be able to is that if they're going to be on the plane that is at that the team is hosting or whatever the hell, they aren't going to be able to just drive down to wherever. They're going to have to fly. Now, sure, they can just play those three other teams. What? That's stupid. At least in the Big 12, there's some sort of close proximity to the next team. Like Arizona is only like 2 states away from a Texas team, and it makes kind of sort of more sense. Also, in Colorado's case, they were like the farthest away Pac-12 team, so it makes sense that hey, they can go back. Like they exist. Also, I think it's. I remember. I missed a number here. Let me get back that blue color. It was. It did become 9, and then it was 7. I forgot that Colorado announced theirs. So yeah, Colorado out of the blue was like, I'm done. I don't want to be here, and left and is leaving for the Big 12 after this season. Going back home, which I totally would understand. I remember when Colorado left, there was a bunch of news outlets or whatever that were like, "Oh, this is going to be the end of the Big 12." How the tables have turned. Anyway, so there's that. The Conference of Champions is now down to a whole 4 members, and that could be lowered. Washington, Oregon are sacrificing the flight time of going to other places to play conference games. That's the dumb part. Conference games. Conference games. You don't travel thousands of miles to play conference games. You just don't. That is honestly a knock against Nebraska for being in the Big 12, because they have to play against Rutgers at least once in any sport. So they're flying a thousand miles to go play Rutgers. But it isn't that extreme. It's only like 2, maybe 3 teams that have some sort of problem with Nebraska. For Washington, Oregon, USC, and UCLA, it's 14 teams, I should say. 14 teams that are over 1,000 miles away. How? Why? Like, it's so disappointing. It's just disappointing. And the Oregon State's athletic director also said, "I'm furious the best interest of the student athlete hasn't been served." Like, yeah. Oregon to Rutgers, 2,900 miles. 2,900 miles for a conference game. And then a non-con, 50 miles for one of the, in my opinion, one of the best rivalries. Colin Cowherd being a idiot. Like, that's what spawned from this. The fact that there are conference games that are now 2,900 miles away. If I remember... no, I know. There is a athletic conference that is exactly what it's asked to. Coast to Coast Athletic Conference. Used to be called Capital Athletic Conference, but now it's just Coast to Coast. It's a Division III school. It only has 7 teams. It could go down to 6 in a little bit, but Atlantic East, nice. So there is a conference that has merit to it, but the thing is that that's one team, and the charter members were all in the DC area, and yet they all like they spread out. Mount Mary is in like nowhere, well, Milwaukee, but like Warren Wilson's in North Carolina, and then UC Santa Cruz. UC, that stands for University of California. What in the heck? That's not right, but that's just one member. And also, it's a dying conference in Division 3, so I don't even know how that's in there, but hey, it exists. And that's the only precedent for like thousands of miles away for being in a conference is a Division 3, and it's a small sample size at that. Like, there's no benefit for the student athlete to be a part of the teams that are having to travel at least 1,000 miles away to go play a conference game. And to have a rivalry that went from being a conference rivalry to being a non-conference game in which there's a good chance that you will not play it, considering the fact that the Big Ten is going to consider playing 10 conference games. 10! And I think that's more of a thing to try and force Notre Dame to join, but they're playing like 5 ACC teams. I think they're fine. It's just going to be... It's just going to be... It's just going to be disappointing. Like, sure, I guess it'll be fine if they exist and we play them, but it still doesn't... It still just doesn't feel right. I'm not really entirely... I just... It's the money factor. It's always the money factor that is involved in these deals that make no sense. It's always money, money, money. Which is interesting to say. These institutions on their own make hundreds of millions of dollars per year. Well, maybe much less Nebraska, but they make hundreds of millions of dollars a year. They make enough money to not need to satiate this $30 million, this void of $35 million per year that the Big Ten has. Well, in the difference between in between the what is it? I forgot the word. Anyway, so it's just I don't like rambling about these subjects, but it really is relevant to me personally, because I see it all the time, and it's in other things that exist, like random moves that seem like non-calculated. In reality, they are calculated. It's just that it looks stupid from a standpoint of the public. When you get down to the nitty-gritty, it is a better move for the money. It's never a better move for the people. It's never a better move for the athletics, especially like the ones that don't make money, like softball. I mean, I guess that makes a little bit of money, but like, if we also go to let's go to Nebraska Huskers website. Like, there's a myriad of different athletic teams that exist, like cross country, golf, gymnastics, tennis. Like, those things don't make enough money to satiate themselves. So they're getting help from the things like basketball, football, and in Nebraska's case, women's volleyball. But it's the traveling aspect. If I'm well, not necessarily golfer, but if I'm like a cross country person and I'm gonna have to be literally crossing the country to go play track meets or whatever. I don't want to do that. I I would rather just not. But you're going to be forced to when you have all these things or whatever. I guess I don't really know much about like cross country or whatever, but I know that like they do. Let's go gymnastics as an example. Men's, women's, whatever. So, like there are maybe not. There are conferences and such, and you are playing against opponents. How is that going to exactly work when there's just too much? There's a lot of travel for not the greatest benefit for you, I guess. It always could be more interesting. I just don't like it. It's merely just if you're like tennis. I guess tennis has more of a rigid structure. Like we face like Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. Imagine having to play tennis, but like across the country. No, I would rather not do that, especially if like Oregon and where Washington has to go to Rutgers to play a conference opponent at least once, maybe twice a year. That just sounds dumb, and it really is not fun. It just wouldn't be that fun to have to constantly cross the country to play soccer, play tennis, when you could easily just not have to travel all that too far, which is what the Pac-12 was. The Pac-12 was something that you didn't really have to travel far to if you were simply just on the West Coast. Which is, it's a disappointment that the Pac-12 will go away. It was the last truly regional conference of Division 1 FBS. FCS, it's more regional, but sometimes it does kind of do some whack things, but whack. Anyway, so like there's that, but I really do want to talk about other things that don't pertain to this stuff, but it's necessary because next year Nebraska is going to have to be playing Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA. We don't know the schedules because they aren't going to be making that until it's definitively that they are not going to be adding new teams. Which I thought they already said when they added USC and UCLA. Like, oh, yeah, we have schedule. We're fine. No, of course not. They're not done. Like, it's disappointing, dudes, but I can understand it from a business perspective that there's a ton of money on the other side and it's better than that, but Nebraska is an example. When they jumped to the Big 12, like in hindsight, it's a better idea because the Big 12 isn't necessarily getting that great of a media deal and Big 10 is much more stability, but at the time, you're going from playing teams from the South to playing teams that are all the way in the East, which was definitely a big deal at that time. And now that is like completely moot when it has to come to the fact that teams like Washington and Oregon are in the same conference as the Rutgers. That just doesn't sound right. And also is a screwed up timeline considering Rutgers, like a decade ago, wasn't. Well, I guess maybe they were joining this conference, but it was still such a far away distance. And like even like I guess when Nebraska joined, it definitely wasn't that there was like that far away team. I guess it was like, oh, Pennsylvania, like, oh god, that's so far. In reality, like, you could travel there in 1.5 days. It's American freedom. Like, if you start travel on a Friday, you just hope that the game is out at like 7 p.m. and you can like get there in time. But if it's a day game, I guess you're screwed if you mostly leave on Thursday. But no. I just wish it could be better. I just wish that teams would understand. Well, not teams, but like conferences would understand that stretching yourselves too thin could actually get you cut and cut a lot easier. But that's not gonna happen. At this point, the Power 2 is inevitable. Pac-12, Pac-12, Pac-10, Pac-9, Pac-7, Pac-4. It's pretty much dead at this point unless they're able to revive themselves by adding a myriad of different teams. Rest in peace. But maybe they won't go away. Maybe they will come back. Maybe they will figure out how to find some new up and coming teams. But that's not how college football works, unfortunately. There's the haves and there's the have-nots. Usually just applies to the player. The player, but right now it's only really affecting the corporate structure of a team. It really only is affecting the team that is of this move. But the player is being underrepresented. Which I guess could change if there's this thing that is happening where it's entirely possible that teams could be having to, quote, employ their players. I think everyone forgot about this, but player. Yeah, no, I'm not going to be able to find it. But I remember a while back there's a case that's currently going through the court system where there are a bunch of players that are suing that, saying that they are a, quote, state employee. Which I think they have an entire right to think of that because they're used by the state as pretty much propaganda for a lot of different things. I do believe that they might at some point be considered state employees, especially for the ones that are, of the state, but we won't know. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Probably just a lot of rambling, but I believe that I needed to talk about this, and maybe in the future, Pac-12 can still exist. It may be like the Big East, where it's only a basketball conference anymore. And the football thing is dead, but the Big East was different. When the Big East football died, it was mainly just because the other teams were like, screw it, I don't care. But they didn't have football teams, at least good ones. But yeah, that's all I have. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a good day. And I wish football season could come early, but gotta wait till this weekend, baby. Can't wait for Saturday.